must show discipline, tolerance, and production to build a strong and better nation. I say that is the main foundation. So come let us work hand in hand, because this is our land. Come my brother, come my sister, and let us build a nation together. So much of things that we need to see about. Surely I do have to spell them out. Cause you know as well as I do, the only way is putting more effort and less play.
Welcome to the Hub again. Another night, another moment where we can have a conversation via radio and social media. I want to welcome you. I want to encourage you to share the live, those on Facebook and YouTube. Please do so. Sharing is caring. I want us tonight to engage in a conversation that would cause all of us to come to some semblance of common sense, reasoning, thinking deeper. I want to say to you, for 23 years and a half, the NNP call their supporters the poor and the vulnerable. That is how they referred to their supporters. Anytime they open their mouth and they talk about the poor and vulnerable, they are talking specifically about their supporters, because the majority of their supporters are poor and vulnerable, and they love to be called poor and vulnerable. And I believe the NNP make them poor and make them vulnerable and keep them poor and keep them vulnerable, which is very sad, because I cannot fathom for a moment how a group of people or a segment of our population accept the name poor and vulnerable. In a press conference, the individual, well, I consider him to be the old cock, the individual repeated poor and vulnerable so many times that people get fed up. They got fed up with the individual mentioning that, but that is not because he loved the poor and the vulnerable, or he want to see you come out of poverty or not be vulnerable anymore. No. Nope. Don't confuse yourself, When this man speaks about poor and vulnerable, he knows that the direct beneficiary of you being poor and vulnerable is the NNP. Because generally speaking, the poor and the vulnerable people in Grenada, they tend to support the NNP. They tend to vote for the NNP because they don't like themselves. They like the party and they like the ruler within that party. It is clear. They don't like themselves, because I cannot understand how you could remain poor for so long and the party likes you and they care about you so much that they leave you in poverty for 20-something years. You still can't get out of poverty. Something is fundamentally wrong. So when this individual speaks about the poor and the vulnerable, it's not that he wants to see you come out of poverty, better yourself and your family. No, or else they would have supported the free tuition policy by the government, or else they would have supported the JUMP program by the government, providing free internet access. Well, internet access at $20 with a free device. Or else they would have supported the WASH program. Yes, where government is seeking to build, construct bathrooms and toilets that is acceptable to anybody who is reasonable and who understands what a bathroom and toilet looks like. Not the old thing that the NNP started doing just before the election. But I'm simply saying, folks, if they were concerned about you coming out of poverty, they would support the CES program that provided $30,000 or up to $30,000 for 500 plus small, medium, micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. I hope you understand what I'm saying here, you know. So they consistently talk about the poor and the vulnerable. In fact, let me feature some of them pieces, because I mean, in that particular press conference, it was just poor and vulnerable, poor and vulnerable. First piece.
So all sectors, you have particularly the poor and the vulnerable, although we're not supposed to talk about the poor and the vulnerable, because this government says the NNP love to talk about poor and vulnerable because we like to keep people poor. You know, all the road work and things that we do is about keeping people poor. So do nothing for them.
Right. So his conscience is juking him. You heard what he said there? Yeah. Because people are now beginning to conclude that these people like to see their supporters poor. He's not genuine about these poor and vulnerable people and wanting to get them out of poverty and get them out of their vulnerable state. People are beginning to conclude that. And because people are opening up their eyes and realizing that the NNP, in their belief, wants to keep these people poor, his conscience started juking him. So he had to speak about that in such a way. But that's just the first piece. You know, I tell you, if I go to play the amount of times he mentioned poor and vulnerable at that press conference, you will be shocked.
But government must always have a focus on the poor and vulnerable. If you don't do that, then you're failing in your responsibility.
Right, so you fail in your responsibility because you never bring these people out of poverty. You never help them to become independent so that they can stand on their own bottom. You never did so. Let's continue, because I spoke about the free tuition policy, but here, what Keith Mitchell had to say about it. He's a grudgeful, jealous, envious guy, you know. It's so important that we understand this creature, you know. This guy is a multi-millionaire, and the majority of his supporters, they are poor and vulnerable. That's their name, poor and vulnerable. How could that be? You are so rich and your supporters are so poor. Something has to be wrong. And his conscience is pricking him. That is why he's mentioning this thing over and over. So in a press conference, don't believe that he likes these poor people, you know. Go and look at the mansion that he's living in and how much swimming pool and all kind of stuff like that. Go and look at it. Go and look at the swimming pool and the mansion that he lives in. And look around where he lives. He don't want no poor people around him. No, you're mad or what? You think this guy want poor people around him and the poor and the vulnerable? You're joking. You have to be joking. Trust me on that one.
With it. The issue of free education, another nonsense again, when in fact the NNP government was providing tuition for those who cannot afford, and providing books allowance, free books for those persons who can't afford, providing transportation allowance, uniform allowance. NNP had broadened this thing. It's my own personal view, and I've said it. If the country has enough money to give everybody everything free, free books, free tuition, free transportation, and I say, and we have oil money running, I say give everybody. But in a time that you're claiming that things you have difficulty and shortages, and you had to cut back on poor people seed program and so on. In a time that you have this, You tell him you're giving free tuition to everybody, and that's it.
You see, this thing born in Keith Mitchell, this old piece of thing, he born in him bad, bad, bad. Keith Mitchell is a bad-minded old piece of thing. And let me tell you this, he doesn't love poor people. Don't fool yourself. This guy is bitter because the NDC was able to roll out a free tuition policy where they did not discriminate against the students or the parents. A child is a child. They don't care if your mother is working or unemployed, driving a car or not driving a car, living in a wooden house or a concrete house. They don't care about that. A child is a child. So all the students attending TAMCC, all the students attending NULO, they got the $810, that first tuition fee, because they will be getting that for the time, the college life and the NULO life. So it could be for 2 years, in some instances 3 years. So they got the $810 tuition fee paid by government. So government paid the $810 to the institution for them. This creature has a problem with that because he believes that it should only go to his supporters, because the poor and vulnerable, that's his supporters. He wants government, he wants taxpayers' money to only be used to take care of his supporters, the poor and the vulnerable. That is what I concluded from the statement he made. The guy is bitter. He's angry. The NNP support base is the poor and the vulnerable. And they don't like the poor and the vulnerable. They just keeping them poor and they're keeping them vulnerable. So he's angry with the fact that the NDC is not discriminating against any child. All of them will get, and they got the $810 off or tuition fee paid by government. This guy has a problem with that because it was a similar thing this bad-minded old creature did to the free textbook program. Don't forget that, The NDC introduced the free textbook program. They ordered the books, and they were ordering the books every year in preparation for the start of the school year. All right? The start of the September period, the start of the school year or the first term and so on. Here it is. The NNP came into power and they removed all the students who are collecting the books and attending private schools. Because this same creature had a problem with the fact that the NDC was giving all the students books. They were not looking at who going to private school or public school, who driving a car, who was not driving a car, who have a wooden house versus who had a concrete house. They were not looking at that. We all are taxpayers. We all are citizens of Grenada. So what the NNP did was to remove all the students from the private school, so the parents had to find the money and buy their books. And they scaled back the program. They stopped other books for that program, Because why? They had friends who had bookstores too, in my belief. And people had to go there and buy their books. The NNP administration was brutal, But this bad-minded old individual believes that he has, some sense. This guy is a political idiot. Keith Mitchell is a political idiot, a political dumb. He kept the Grenadian people poor and vulnerable, in my belief, for great many years, and he used all kinds of strategies to get back there over and over and over again. The Grenadian people eyes are now open. We are no longer blind to all his trickery. This bad-minded creature is unhappy with the fact that all the students who are attending TAMCC, they now have free tuition. Their parents don't have to pay, don't have to find the money for the free tuition. But let him stay and deal with that.
The government of Grenada will officially launch its free tuition program on Monday, September 4th. The launch will take place at the Grenada Trade Center from 2:30 p.m. and will be broadcast live on the Government Information Service. The free tuition policy has been approved by Cabinet for students attending T.A. Marshall Community College and the New Life organization. Speaking in Parliament on Tuesday, Minister for Education, Senator the Honorable David Andrew, said the free tuition policy will also be extended to the 3-year pharmacology program at TAMCC. Senator Andrew clarified that although tuition will be absorbed by the government, students will still pay for ID cards, registration, and other deliverables. He said his government has allocated $2.5 million towards the free tuition policy.
This policy is one where the government will pay the tuition fees associated with study at TAMCC or NULO, right, or any other approved center in time. And so we know that the $810 annual fee that was payable at the T.A. Marshall Community College, that fee will be absorbed through this government's free tuition policy. Further, that same fee will be applied to persons pursuing studies at NULO. So I know it will cover the tuition part of NULO fees, but it will be an excess that will be applied to some of the other fees. So we want to make it clear, we are not saying there are no other fees. You may have to pay registration fees, you may have to pay T-shirts and other deliverables that you may get, the identification badge. We're not interfering with that at this point. But we are happy to bear the load of the $810 tuition fee, $810 tuition fee. We are very, very happy to do that.
Yes, that is what the man afraid, you know. The man don't like that. The man, this creature, he doesn't like that at all. Because I am saying to you, don't forget, lest you forget, it was the same kind of utterances, the same kind of rhetoric or statement. It was similar with the free textbook program and with this free tuition initiative or policy. So let us listen to the creature again, because I believe it's important to listen to that old cock. It is important to listen to that old cock. And you hear it in his voice. Bitterness, anger. This guy doesn't like the poor people. No. Look at where he lives. Gated and big wall and all kind of stuff. Look at where he lives. You think he's studying Grenadians and poor and vulnerable? You want to keep you poor and keep you vulnerable, in my belief.
The government of Grenada will officially...
Not that. Not that piece. Yeah, let's listen to what he had to say again regarding the free tuition policy, because you could sense that he's bitter, he's angry, but he has to deal with the reality. Grenadians are opening up their eyes.
With it. The issue of free education and other nonsense again, when in fact the NNP government was with it. The issue of free education and other nonsense again, when in fact the NNP government was providing tuition for those who cannot afford, and providing books allowance, free books for those persons who can't afford, providing transportation allowance, uniform allowance. NNP had broadened this thing.
This is a big laugh. Let me tell you why it's a big laugh. Because the NDC continue with the uniform allowance and school supplies program, right? So uniform and school supplies, that program giving parents the money so that they can buy uniform and school supplies. The NDC continues with that. So that never stopped. Transportation allowance is still being given to some students. So that never stopped. The free textbook program, that continues, but the NNP scale it down. The NDC has to do a lot more to bring that back to where it was. But he's bitter. He's angry. because the NDC is not discriminating against anybody regarding the free tuition policy.
It's my own personal view, and I've said it. If the country has enough money to give everybody everything free, free books, free tuition, free transportation, and I say, and we have oil money running, I say give everybody.
The gall, he has the balls, the guts to say, well, we say oil money running, so give. Well, what's wrong with this piece of thing, boy? This bad-minded, Keith Mitchell was born bad, This creature was born bad. And I told you in the past, if God visits me and say, Kem Jones, what wish do you have? I would say to him, take me back to 1946, when this creature, right, was conceived. Take me back to 1946, and I will give to this creature, father, whoever, who did that, who made that, some condoms, and that would have never come on the face of the earth. He would have never, ever come on the face of the earth. That could have been a thing in the toilet flush, the toilet bowl. I'm telling you, Grenada would have been a far, far better place than this. Look at this. The guy has the gall to even reference the oil and gas, or the gas, or whatever, the oil money. What's wrong with this guy, boy? He taking everything for a joke, He sees Grenada as a big laugh. You don't realize what's going down. That is why he's calling his supporters what? The poor and the vulnerable. The poor and the vulnerable.
But in a time that you're claiming that things you have difficulty and shortages, and you had to cut back on poor people seed program and so on. In a time that you have this, you tell him you're giving free tuition to everybody, and that's it. And you're not talking about the transportation allowance, you're not talking about uniform allowance, you're not talking about providing additional support to the poor people so they can buy some food.
Where this guy is bitter. Anytime he hears about everybody, the government providing assistance to everybody, that pains him. It affects him a great deal. That's the problem, Yeah, he knows that the NDC administration continues to provide uniform allowance and school supplies assistance. He knows that. He knows that they continue to support students with transportation assistance and so on. He knows that. With the free textbook and all the different social safety net programs. He knows that. But what is burning this creature, this bad-minded piece of thing, what's burning him is the fact that this free tuition is for everybody. NDC is not discriminating against anybody. That's what's burning him. I'm telling you, he burning him and burning him bad. But we must understand, not because, and let's go back to the free textbook program, when the NNP decided to remove all the students who were in private schools, and mind you, some months after, it was discovered that thousands of books were left in the Ministry of Education in a particular room, and it became so messed up with all kind of termites and all kind of, what wet, what damage, and they had to dump it. I remember that. They had to dump these books because they didn't give the private students the books because it came for everybody, but they decided to cut the private students out. The NNP administration is guilty of that. They're nasty, They're nasty to the core. But they do these things and they get away with it. But no longer can they get away with their nasty conduct. We're going to hold them to task. So they cut them out. They say, well, the parents in private schools, they could pay for their books and they could pay for this and they could pay for that. And mind you, they pay in taxes. But what he wants to do, what he did, the NNP administration did, is to take from the poor. That is their philosophy. Take from the rich, or the middle income, take from the hard-working people, take from the middle income and the rich, and give all to the poor. That is all they want, because the poor and the vulnerable are their supporters. and for them to win an election over and over again, their people, the poor and the vulnerable, must get all. So all the road work, they get it. The poor relief assistance program, they get it. The new Imani training program, their children get it. Right? The school books and the free textbook, their children get it. The voucher, the back to school voucher, their children get it. The housing assistance, their family get it. The poor and the vulnerable. Right? The houses and the housing schemes and so on, their supporters get it. And that is how they was going, you know. That is exactly how they was going. Only their supporters, because their supporters are the poor and the vulnerable. Because their leader, well, their ruler, has been calling them so for 20-something years. Just as you would see a young lady going along the road and you say, hi, sweetie, or hi, gorgeous, you look lovely, and they start to smile or blush or whatever. You just see an NNP supporter, NNP woman going along the road, NNP supporter, and call her poor and vulnerable. She's smiling. She's starting to grin. She teeth like Shasha Cat. Just see a NNP supporter, a young lady who supports the NNP, and it could be an elderly one too. And you see them going down the road, just as you would see a young lady, and you say, hi, beautiful, hi, gorgeous, or whatever. And she will smile. She will just see an NNP supporter going down the road and call them poor and vulnerable. They will smile like Shasha Cat. They happy you call them poor and vulnerable? Because the NNP has been calling them poor and vulnerable for 20-something years. 20-something years. They have been called poor and vulnerable. So they believe that everything should be free coming to them. That is why the issue of the housing, and I will come to that, But let me also make another reference of how bad-minded that creature is. Remember the free barrels? You remember the free barrels that the NDC gave to Grenadians around Christmas time? The NNP cut it out. They cut it out because they said, well, everybody was benefiting. Every Grenadian was benefiting. They wanted only their people, who they called, quote unquote, the poor and the vulnerable, to benefit. That is how they operate. They only want their people to be fed, and nobody else should survive. And they did that for 20-something years. But we have to expose them, because these people are still poor and vulnerable. They kept them poor and they kept them vulnerable. They have not improved. They are stuck in poverty. Every time they open their big old mouth, it's about the poor and the vulnerable, the poor and the vulnerable. But why is it that they are so poor and vulnerable and you are so rich? Why you have so much of millions and millions and millions? Why all your family and friends at the top within that new nasty party, why they have so much? And the supporters have nothing. They're scrunty, beggy. Why? Every time that individual, that creature, opens his mouth, it's about the poor and the vulnerable, the poor and the vulnerable. They don't like these people. They don't want to see them come out of poverty. No, they don't. Because if they did, they would support the initiatives that are geared towards helping these people come out of poverty. They would have supported it, but they're not going to do that.
Suffering in this country. People are suffering, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen of the government. People are suffering. Deal with the people's problems. Help the poor. Help the vulnerable.
Right.
Stop playing with these people's lives.
Over and over in that press conference, he mentioned it how many times. But do not be fooled. Do not believe that he likes the poor and vulnerable and wants to see the poor and vulnerable come out of poverty. Don't be fooled. You believe so? For 23 years and a half, this creature couldn't get these people out of poverty. He couldn't help them out of poverty. They're still stuck in poverty, poor. But if the NNP, if the new nasty party was genuine about getting these people out of poverty, they would have supported some of the initiatives of this government. And one of them is the free tuition policy. Education is liberation. Education can cause a family to be totally transformed, to be less dependent on government, to be self-reliant, to be independent, to be earning a livelihood outside of government dependency. Education, that's one of the, the gateway to opportunity and prosperity. Education, that policy should have been supported by the NNP if they really love the poor and the vulnerable, or if they love to see these people, if they want to see these people come out of poverty. They're supposed to support this initiative. Yes, they're supposed to. Let me try to get a piece of this thing again and play, because it's important that you understand what is going on. We are talking about hundreds of students, right? Let me get this thing. Hundreds of students are able to attend TAMCC, are able to attend college. This is significant. This is groundbreaking. This is no joke. So if the NNP was serious about getting these poor people out of where they are in extreme, abject poverty, they would support the government with this initiative. But no, they don't want to support them. They vex them. They blue vex. They blue vex.
Prospective students turned out in their numbers at the T.A. Marisho Community College for the first day of registration on Monday. Registrar at the college, Marva Bowen Neptune, during an interview with our news team, reported an influx of applications, which she attributes to the removal of tuition fees at the institution.
What we see now is influx of applications because, of course, with the free tuition, students are now realizing it is very affordable, so they are applying now. And we also seen that now that they have the results, they're able to get into the programs. Sometimes they don't want to apply unless they know they met the requirements. Some students don't want to apply into the other programs because they really want to do the associate degree.
The registrar also used the opportunity to speak about the registration process, which will run throughout the week.
All students who sit the CSEC exam.
Right. But you heard the registrar there saying they're seeing a record number of people, students, coming to register to go to college because, she stated categorically, because of the free tuition policy of the government. That is significant. Yes, very significant. So you have more students going to TAMCC, registering because their parents don't have to find that $810. And mind you, when you go to college, it's either for 2 years or 3 years. So you're talking about in 2 years, that parent would save $1,620 per child. Yeah. And if they're doing the 3-year program at TAMCC, well, you're talking about, 888, that's about 2460. You're talking about 2430. That's a lot of money. Anyhow you look at it, that they will save. So if the NNP is serious about helping these poor and vulnerable people, because that's their supporters, they have been calling these people poor and vulnerable for 23 years. It's like you have some dogs in your yard or some fowls in your yard, some hard fowls in your yard, or yard fowls, and you say, cluck, 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 and all of them run come. Right? Or you call the dog in some name, and all of them run come. That is how the NNP has been treating their supporters. Every time they open them out, they call them the poor and the vulnerable. Call them poor and vulnerable, and they will smile for you. They're happy to be called poor and vulnerable. But if the NNP was serious about helping these people to get out of poverty, get out from that vulnerable state that they're in, they would support the free tuition policy. They will support that. They will support the JUMP program. Yep, they would support the JUMP program, and they would support the WASH program. They would support these programs. But no, They don't want to support these programs. Because why? These programs going to lift people out of poverty. Going to take people out of poverty and liberate them. That is what the program will do, you know. But they don't want that. Because they believe if that happens, then they lose some support. And they may lose a lot of support. Because as long as people are coming out of poverty, NNP will lose a lot of support. But if they are serious about these young people and about the middle-aged and those people who they call in vulnerable, poor and vulnerable, they would support the JUMP program.
The JUMP program is a public-private partnership between the government of Grenada and Flow Grenada. It focuses on 3 core components: digital literacy training, providing connectivity with free devices, and offering subsidized broadband access. These components collectively aim to address the digital divide by empowering individuals with skills, ensuring access to technology, and making high-speed internet affordable. In an interview with GBN, Flow's Marketing and Communication Executive Troy Courtney went into details about the subsidized broadband service provided through the JUMP program.
Now, in the JUMP program, like I said, we'll be providing subsidized broadband, a free device, which would be either a laptop or a tablet, and we'll also be providing free digital literacy training. The subsidized broadband is going to be at only $20 a month. So that takes a massive chunk of the cost of the customer, and that will be covered by the government and Flow.
The eligibility criteria for the JUMP program was also explained.
Currently, we're working with the government and we're taking applications to the SEED program. So anybody that you know that is on the SEED program, you can come in and you can nominate them to be a part of the JUMP program. And everybody that applies for the program must go through a vetting process, which will be vetted by the government of Grenada in order for them to be able to know if you're eligible for the JUMP program.
The long-term vision of the JUMP program in Grenada, according to Courtney, is to create a digitally inclusive society where everyone has the skills and tools to thrive in the digital age.
During the pandemic, we would have noticed that a lot of students were unable to, fully participate in school activities. And that's because they were unable to connect via the internet. Now, we want to curb that. We want to ensure that they have the tools needed to be competitive in the workforce, and we are providing them now with the means to be able to do so.
Right, so this is a joint initiative, and I love that. Flow/the government of Grenada. This is a wonderful initiative, where households without internet will get internet, and all they have to pay is $20 per month. And with that internet, they will be getting a device, a laptop computer, so they can surf the internet, so they can research. The students, the young people in the house can broaden their knowledge by using the internet and so on. And they also providing literacy training for that household so that they can use the device to benefit them and their family. This is significant. So if the NNP cares about lifting these people out of poverty, bettering their living standard and condition, they will support this program. They will support the free tuition program. They will support the JUMP program, and they will also support the WASH program. They will support the WASH program. But no, they don't want to support these programs.
This is WASH, the Water, Access and Sanitation in Homes program, an initiative that's changing lives, eliminating disparities, and building brighter futures. This groundbreaking program is the flagship initiative of nation builders and is aimed at providing clean water and proper sanitation facilities to those who need it. It's simple. We believe that clean water and sanitation are fundamental human rights. Therefore, we are committed to providing all households in Grenada with these necessities by 2027. The goals of WASH are clear and straightforward. 1. We will ensure that every home has access to indoor running water. 2. We will provide equitable sanitation systems like bathrooms to homes that don't currently have them. 3. We will end the use of open defecation facilities such as pit latrines. And finally, through these goals, we will enhance social comfort and improve environmental aesthetics. The WASH program found its start in Belial St. David, a close-knit community with unique challenges and potential. Belial is a picturesque place, but the socio-economic disparities are visible. Many homes in Belial lack access to basic amenities. In fact, our team identified 51 homes in the community that could benefit from our assistance. However, installing the necessary facilities can cost around 20,000 EC dollars per home. But with support from members of the private sector, we can make a significant impact, not just in Belial, but throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. Join us in our mission to improve living conditions, promote well-being, and empower communities. WASH.
Yes, folks, I am saying again, if the NNP is serious about lifting people out of poverty and removing them from their vulnerable position or state, they will support this program called WASH. That is what a responsible opposition party or group need to do, because the majority of their supporters are poor and vulnerable. They have been called poor and vulnerable for many, many years. You know, let me give you a simple analogy. There are children who are a bit slow with their schoolwork and their learning, and their parents would consistently, right, over and over again, call them duns, which is really, really bad. But they would call them duns and dunce head and over and over and over. And after a while, that will stick with the child. The child would have low self-esteem, and the child will believe that indeed he or she is dunce. It doesn't mean that the child is actually dunce. The child might just be slow. And with the help, that child could be brilliant, could be a really good performer academically and so on. But because they call that child dunce over and over and over again, that stuck with the child and affected the child psychologically. It's the same thing the NNP did to their supporters, in my belief. The same thing. Because you speak to the supporters of the NNP, the new nasty party, and they will tell you that they are poor and that they are vulnerable, and they would beg you for a drink, beg you for everything. They beggy, and scrunty. Yeah, they're making these people believe that they are poor. Some of these people, they're able-bodied. They could work, but they refuse to work. But they would sit home, make a whole pile of children, and collect the poor relief assistance. And during the NNP time, they were getting $150 per child. So more children they make is more money they were collecting, plus the $300 or $450 at the time. It was an incentive for them to not work, remain home, and depend on taxpayers' money. Yeah. So they believe that they're poor and they can't work. And I gave you another analogy. You have a person who they tell you can't walk, right? So they repeat that over and over. You can't walk, you can't walk, you can't walk. And they believe that they cannot walk. And sometimes it's something minor, you know. It's like a disease in the mind. So some pastor come out from somewhere and bring people around and say to the person, get up and walk. I beseech thee, get up and walk. In the name of Jesus, get up and walk. Take your stick and walk. Or put your stick down and walk. Or run. And tutus the person start to run, or the person start to walk. And they say, oh, it's a miracle, and it's a miracle, and it's a miracle. The person is a miracle. But all the time the person could have walked. All the time the person could have walked. All the person had to do was to just walk. Get up and walk on their own because they were capable of walking, but they make them believe that they can't walk. That is what the NNP did to their supporters. They paralyzed them. They crippled them mentally. Mentally, not physically, mentally. Because many of them could walk. Many of them could walk. Many of them could do stuff. But they're not doing it. So with the change of guards, the new sheriff in town, they catch in a royal because they're accustomed getting free free this and free that and free this and free that and free this. That is over. It's done. It's fini. Fini, Gassa. It's done. You got to walk for your own. Get up and walk. Get up and walk and get up and walk. They make you believe that laziness is a reward because you could go to the office and go and beg and beg. When you go to the office nowadays, they tell you, well, the member of parliament in the field. Go in the field and follow them in there. Go and find them in the field to beg them for this and beg them. That's over. The days of that is over. That is how the NNP treat their supporters. That is what they make them believe. Don't fool yourself, you know. That's what they have been doing to these people over and over and over again. That is why they're so angry when housing authority say to them, well, you're not going to trick us again, you know. What they call all you poor and vulnerable, and they dump you all in some of those apartments, give you a letter stating that you have to pay $30-something thousand, $40-something thousand, $50-something thousand. You enter into an agreement further to pay $200 a month. You start paying first month, second month, third month, and because your party was in power, you just stop pay. You stop pay. And then your children, and because in some of those apartments, they were meant for 2 people, 3 people, but you have 6 and 7, they just make a whole pile of children. They mash the window up, they mash the door up, they mash the lights, they mash up everything, they wreck it, they mash it up. Tiles, everything mash up. So now housing has to get $2.2 million to fix the thing, you know. Yeah, to repair the thing. Where they will get the money from? And you're not paying? They ain't paying because they call themselves poor and vulnerable. They call them the needy. Huh? You're poor and you're vulnerable and you're going to all them shows, all them parties. If you see some of them, carnival time, all them expensive shows, you've seen them. They go and buy Brazilian wig. The most expensive wig and nails and is what they're doing. Nice, expensive outfits and so on. They go to all party. They don't have the priority straight. And they're drinking the most expensive whiskey, you know. Some of them are accustomed drinking Jack Iron and Class Coat. Nah, they're drinking Jack Daniel, Hennessy, Cognac. They're drinking expensive stuff. Champagne and so on. Because why? The party was in power and they never saw paying for the apartments and so on as a priority. So now, NDC in power, they want to repair the facility. And they say to these people, well, all you in pay, all you in arrears, all you in pay. Not even arrears, sorry. All you owe because there are no late fee and no arrears. All you owe thousands of dollars. Come and pay. Then the NNP surrogates and pundits, they start saying, well, the government bad and the government this and the government that, and give them free and give them this and give them amnesty and forgive them. And yeah, that's how they're going, you know. They're so accustomed with free co. Or they go eat rat poison, you know. Or you like too much of free co. That's what's going down. But not only that. So the new apartments and so on, the new housing schemes, they thought that housing will fall for the stupidness. Yeah, you think they're joking? So housing authority say, oh, all you catch us the first time on the NNP. That ain't happening now, you know. All you have to go to a financial institution, get a loan, come and buy the apartments, and pay the financial institution. It's the same thing, you know. Pay them. If you believe you could pay them. Because you want these facilities to, they want them facilities to become a slum. They want it to become a project. That's what they want. That's what the NNP and them want. They want the poor and the vulnerable to go in those apartments. So when the little police officer, nurse, teacher, prison officer, the fisherman, the farmer, who working hard and could pay for the apartment and so on, they pay for it. They put these poor and vulnerable people up there, and they just go in and rob, mash up them people's place. They start selling drugs, and a whole pile of nastiness going on. The oldest profession in the world start happening there. And then it becomes a ghetto. It becomes a slum. That is what they want. That is exactly what they want. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Put that in your pipe and pipe it. It's not going to happen. That's what they want. You didn't know? So that is why this guy in the press conference brain and talking nonsense. Huh? And the poor and the vulnerable, and that is what he was meant for, poor and vulnerable. Look at it. It's a slum all over. Slum, a project, a ghetto. That's what they want. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Go to the financial institution. Go and get your loan and buy the thing and pay for it. Or little bad-minded. Go and get it. But there are decent people who want those apartments. But they don't want to buy these apartments and have the people who NNP call the poor and vulnerable to come there. They ain't walking nowhere. They have no money to pay for the apartments. Nothing like that. All they could do is to come and sell drugs and smoke and make a whole pile of children and fill up the apartments. Noise and all kind of social ills and problems. They want to turn it into a ghetto. That's what they want to do. Because they turn the others into ghettos. That's the reality. But they think housing stupid. They think they will catch housing. Again, you don't see the guy he run. He resign. He resigned. Pressure. He resigned. The one that was managing housing. He resigned because he realized under his watch, they were supposed to collect these monies from the people who are occupying those facilities, and they received letters that they had to pay. He resigned. Who cares? You take too long to resign. Bye. Goodbye. So what? It's a new sheriff in town. We're going to get the thing right and we're going to do it right. Put it in your pipe and pipe it. Or a little bad-minded. Come on. Every time this man have a press conference, the poor and the vulnerable, the poor and the, God damn it, I'm tired with all you with that. So because they're calling you poor and vulnerable, you want to be poor and vulnerable? Huh? And I have to speak to these people, you know, to change their mindset, to adjust that whole thing, to rearrange it, to unlearn them, and then learn them. It will take a long time, but I have to do it. We have to coach these people into understanding that they're able-bodied, they could do something for themselves and become independent. You don't have to always be poor and vulnerable because NNP call you poor and vulnerable. Look at those who in NNP, they have 19 million. Well, some people say he put the 1 before the 9. It's supposed to be 91 million. I am not an accountant. I was not there. He said you have 19 million. He's a millionaire. The old cock is a millionaire. He has money like dust, like sand. He don't care about you. He would not spend his money on you. Huh? The old cock will not do that. They talk about what some foundation. Who have a foundation again? Up to now, the foundation can give a book. Huh? Not even a notebook or a pencil or a pen. You think that old cock will spend money? What's wrong with all you? Something wrong with all you. Something fundamentally wrong with all you. I'm saying to you, wake up. Not because they call you poor and vulnerable. You have to be poor and vulnerable all the days of your life. You love to be called poor and vulnerable. Huh? Stop it. Pick yourself up. Liberate yourself mentally. Have the determination to go after success. Break that cycle. They have, you know, more or less keep you in this four wall silos, confine you to silos. And it's a doldrum situation in there. You can't move. You're immobile. Yes, you could walk. Yes, you could talk. Yes, you could work. But they make you believe that you cannot use your hands to earn a daily bread. They make you believe that you cannot move, so you cannot go to work. Come on. Get yourself out of this condition. Take yourself out of that. They kept you so for 20-something years. 20-something years. Now this government is doing stuff to help you, to get you out from where you are. Embrace it. Embrace it. Grab the opportunity. Embrace it. And that is why I commend this lady. I commend her when she said she was extremely happy to receive the bathroom and toilet facility. I commend her because I know her. I know that family. And I know their political support. All right? I know their political support. I know who they support politically. Right? I know that family. So I am happy that that family embrace that transformation. And that's why I'm really, really, really joyous. I saw that news piece and I was really, really, really happy for that family. Embracing that transformation. Seeing that as a great way to turn the tides and change things for that entire family. I really applaud it. I applaud it.
In other news this evening, 51 households in Belle Isle are set to benefit from the Water Access and Sanitation in Homes, or WASH project, which was launched on Saturday at the Belle Isle Community Center in St. David. We hear more on this from Troy Gill.
I feel so good, If you know how good I feel, how glad I is today. Real glad. I feel real happy. Happy.
That was Juliet Creedland, a Belle Isle.
Yes, and she's happy. And she's a decent woman. She's a nice woman. Nice family, nice people. I know them very well. And I'm happy for her because she's embracing transformation, embracing change. That is what's supposed to happen. I love that. House by house, we're going to transform them. We're going to make their life better. Very important. Folks, I want to wish you all the best. Have a wonderful night. We've gone over the time. I'll be back with you tomorrow, God's willing, starting from 8 in the a.m. Take good care. We have to continue that mission. We're not going to let them get away. You joking. You're joking. That's not going to happen. Nope. We're going to expose them. We're going to engage in a robust intellectual conversation to empower our people, to enlighten our people, to educate our people. Because once you're educated, once you're empowered, once you're enlightened, once you know, you can reason at a higher level. You can reason deeper. That is what we strive for. Higher level of reasoning, higher consciousness in this country. That is exactly the path we are on.